computer wanted to restart on me, but here we are. Welcome to the pillow of the month. We're doing happy carrots today, which is in honor of April. All right, so let me show you where to find the resources. I see several people out there jumping on. Hi, everybody. So my name's Yvonne. If you're new to the channel, all of the handouts are always available free of charge on my website, and I always put the link at the top of the chat, or you can find it in the description. So let me show you where to find stuff really fast, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to www.jellyrollclub.com. Let me share my desktop. And what that looks like is you're going to go to a website that has this handout on it. And so let me show you where the website is. And so it's the Jelly Roll Club website. It has projects, and then you're going to get to the pillow of the month. And it has a video link in case you miss one of them, and then it has the handouts. So when you click on that handout, you get that little pillow icon, and this is where we are. So we are making a lumbar pillow today, but you can make this any size that you want. You don't have to make it the same as I do, so we're going to talk about that. So I'm making a pillow that's going to be finishing 12 by 18. That's why you see it on the little couch. And then I have given you a large carrot that's going to fit on there, but I'm going to show you how to make your own in case you don't have a printer. Okay? So let me just go ahead and get started. Let me close that extra window. All right. So welcome. I see a bunch of people. All right. So now we've got everybody on here. Let me go ahead and show you what we're going to do. So I'm going to do applique, but I'm going to do a fusible applique that's an interfacing. And so it's not the normal fusible web. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the supplies that I'm going to need for today. So I have my happy carrot, right? And so this is a fairly large carrot because it's supposed to fit. You're supposed to put 4 of these on a pillow. And so you need a pretty decently sized one to make it 18 inches across because you're going to space that out. If you don't want to do a lumbar pillow, or if you don't want to do a carrot quite this large and you want to just use your jelly roll strips as is, you can draw yourself a slightly smaller carrot. Super easy to do. It's literally just kind of narrow on the bottom and wider on the top. But this carrot, this big one, is 3.5 inches across the top at the widest point, and right here towards the bottom, it's about 2 inches. And so this does not fit on a jelly roll. So what we're going to do in order to make this big carrot is we're going to get our 4 jelly roll strips, which I said you needed. And you can use scraps for this. You don't even have to use whole jelly rolls because this one is 3.5 inches wide. So as long as you have 3.5 by 2.5, you can do the carrot. And so I have a bunch of different oranges here. You can use checkered, you can use batik, you can mix regular quilting cotton with just about anything you want as long as they're orange. You could even use a yellow orange. This is a floral batik. And so I'm going to make the big carrot, and I'm going to show you how to make the little carrot because I've decided I want a mixture of mine on my pillow. So mine are going to go up and down. I'm going to have little ones going up and big ones going down, and let me show you what that looks like. All right, for this particular project, I'm going to be using a seam roller, and mine just says seam roller, and it's just like a wooden thing. If you have any kind of a wallpaper roller that works. I'm using a little bit of cardboard. I used it to make my template, and I just sketched a carrot. You don't have to have a printer. I'm using a turner. I've got some applique scissors, a chopstick, and this is from just an Asian restaurant, just a regular chopstick. And then a pair of tweezers is handy, so if you have all of that, you're in business. All right, so let me go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I did is I found oranges that I liked, and I'm going to sew them with 1/4 inch. So this is sewn here with 1/4 inch, but if you have smaller ones, that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and press. Once I sew them, I'm going to press them open. You can use your heat or you can just use your seam roller. But either way, I'm just going to press these open. These work better. You can do it with your fingernail like this. And that makes it nice and flat. You can use a seam roller on a hard surface, and look at how flat that makes that. These two oranges are close, so I'm just going to pull this over, and then I'm going to do 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to I'm going to chop this off here. I'm not even going to be too fussy about it. And I'm going to add at least 2 more strips down here at the bottom. So I'm going to find 2 pieces. I need 4 pieces total of scrap. So maybe I just get this little darkish orange and maybe I put that in there. And I need them to be at least 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to take these and I'm going to chop this off like this. And I'm going to sew these together and attach it to the bottom and press it open, and that gives me kind of a long continuous piece. So what I'm going for is something that looks like this, right? Just piece together. I'm going to lay that on top. I can even lay that across the top and just sew on either side. It's not too fussy, and the seams don't have to even be exact. Let me show that for you. Let's see who's out there. Say hello to each other. Tell me where you're joining us from. Most people are watching other things like basketball. I like to sew when other people are watching sporting events. Sometimes I watch sporting events and I sew at the same time, but not always. And you can just pull that around if you want. If you're going to do several, I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to sew on the other end. It doesn't matter if these are even perfectly straight. So as long as you have 4 pieces sewn together that are jelly roll strip width, then that's all that you need. And so let me show you what this looks like. Pull it over here. And so now that I have this big thing, like I said, you can just run your fingernail. It doesn't even have to be perfect. Look at it. It's wavy. Doesn't even matter. The most important thing for this is that these seams are as flat as you can get them. I'm going to add a little starch to that. Stretch that out so that my seams are nice and flat. And I use a nice hot iron. And normally I don't starch once I've pieced, but this time I will. And look at those seams. It doesn't matter whether they're up or down, to the side, open, however you get them, as long as you have a piece that is slightly larger than your carrot. That's all you need, right? And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take some of this, and let me move all of these little guys out of the way. Some of this interfacing, which is this size, and I'm going to take, there's a interfacing, this is fusible, so it has a bumpy side, and then it has a felty side. If you don't have the kind that has the glue, you can do the same thing with this without that. You can just use any side you want. I'm going to do this on a hard surface, but I just use a child's pencil, like a really fat one, with a dull tip because I don't want to tear up my interfacing. And I prefer to do this with pencil. And so I'm going to just trace on the felty side, just like this. And it will look just like that. Doesn't even have to be perfect. I just need at least 1/4 inch on the outside, and I can do those in other sizes as well. Okay, so for my skinnier carrots that I'm making, you don't have to do it like this, but I wanted to add carrots of different sizes. Like I said, I trimmed this out, and then I drew about 1/2 inch on the inside to get this shape. So once I drew this one, I just laid this one in there and kind of used that as my guide, so they're both similar shape, okay? And I made a second carrot. Now this second carrot will fit directly on a jelly roll strip. So for this one, I'm going to take the bumpy side and I'm going to have it face the pretty side, and I'm going to go like this, and it fits just inside that seam. And when I sew this, I'm going to sew on the inside of that drawn line so that I can turn that. And I'm going to just trim it like this. And I'm going to make a skinny carrot out of a jelly roll strip. And then I'm going to make a chubby carrot using this. This has the bumpy side. I'm going to put it to the pretty side of the fabric like this. And I just want to make sure that I'm pinning it in place, or just making sure that it's going to stay and not move around on me. So I'm just going to use a couple of pins, kind of at a diagonal like this, not straight up and down. And that'll just keep it from shifting on me when I'm sewing. For the other one, I'm just going to take one long pin and put it in the middle, just like that. And then I'm going to take these to the machine. On this one, I'm going to sew just inside the line because I want to make sure that it encases that. Let me see, center that. And then for the other one, I'm going to sew right on the drawn line because I've got plenty of space. So for this one, I just want to sew right on the line, no openings, just sew the entire thing. And let me show you what this looks like. Hi everybody, look, I see a bunch more people jumping. All right, jumping on here. All right, so I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to use a nice tight stitch, 15 stitches to the inch, which on a digital machine is like a 2.2 or even a 2, and you're just going to make that nice and tight. It doesn't matter where you start. I start on a straight edge, and then I'm just going to sew for this little one just inside the line. And I want this carrot end to be a little chubby. I don't want it to be too narrow, so I'm going to widen that out at the bottom just a little bit, because turning that's going to be tricky if it's too narrow. And I'm just making sure that I have at least 1/4 of an inch or even 1/16 of an inch of a seam allowance for this carrot. And so I'm going to come here. I'm going to come around this corner. And then I'm going to back tack just a hair. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to do my next carrot. I'm going to pull that back, and this carrot, I'm going to take it and I'm going to sew right on the line. I like starting on one side and just working my way around. It doesn't have to be perfection. You're just going to turn it with your hand. If you want to, you stop and pivot. And just turn it with both of your hands like this as you go around. And then when you get here to the end, you're going to back tack. And then you're going to stop. Once you pull that, you're going to make sure that your stitches overlap. So I want, wherever I started, I made sure that I overlapped. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let me come over here. So you can see right there, I overlapped. So I started here. I went all the way around, and then I came back and overlapped that area. The same with this one. Now I'm going to take these pins out, and I'm going to check my stitching to make sure, especially this little skinny carrot, that I have enough of a seam allowance, and I do. And so now I'm going to trim all the excess. I'm going to leave about a little bit wider than a scant quarter. So somewhere between 1/4 and a scant quarter of an inch, I'm going to leave of a seam allowance just outside of that. I'm going to trim that up. And up here in these curves, I'm going to clip all these little curves without cutting that stitching. just because it'll make it prettier when I turn it. Do little clips in there. And then down here in the corner, I'm going to do little clips. If you have a set of pinking shears, you could also trim them kind of close to the edge with pinking shears, but you don't need to have extra things. All right, now that I have this, I'm going to pinch it. And this has a gluey side, so you just have to be careful. This is not super thick because it's interfacing, and I'm going to pinch it away from my fabric like this. Just pinch it away. And I'm going to take and I'm going to cut a small slit along this edge like this where I creased it. And then I have an opening that looks like that. I'm going to stick my chopstick in there, my finger, and I'm going to just shove my thumb in there and tease it in like this and use the chopstick to shove it through that slit. And just be careful that you're not pushing too hard because that interfacing is easy to tear. You're going to tickle that with this little chubby thing that I have here, this little piece. And I'm sticking this tool in between the layers of the fabric. I'm trying not to abuse that interfacing. I'm going to do the same thing with the end of the carrot. That's why I wanted it to be a little bit chubby. I'm going to stick that in there and I'm going to just shove that through to the other side. And in this case, I'm just going to tickle it outward with the chubby part of the chopstick. And sometimes you do need to use your tweezers to kind of get it out of there. And this is why I use tweezers. Kind of tweeze it outward, pulling the fabric. You can also use a big needle like this one. Kind of pull it towards you without tearing up the fabric. So just get it out of there. And just take your finger and roll it. And that gives you that nice sharp edge to that carrot. All right, so now this looks kind of messy. So I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to run it across. And this is where my little seam roller comes in. I'm just going to take that little seam roller because I don't want to use any heat, and I'm flattening out my carrot just like this. If you have something that looks a little bit misshapen, just go in there and push that out. Just like that. And there's one of my carrots. I made another one earlier, so I have 2 carrots now that are little. And these are just made with a jelly roll strip. And if you want to know how long these carrots are, they're about 7 inches. Here, let me look. Maybe a little bit longer. This is an 8-inch. So these carrots, after they're done, are about 6 and maybe 3/4 of an inch. But they started out almost 7. So if you want to cut a 7-inch piece, that will give you carrots this size. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this big one. Going to trim along this edge. And if you don't want to waste as much fabric, you could even trace these on paper and even paper piece these. All right. So I have this one that is now the bigger carrot, and it looks just like this. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to clip along these curves. You can even notch it like this if you want to. But what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get it so that it doesn't pucker along these curved edges. But do not cut into your stitching. So you can just cut it like that. Cut this bottom just like this. Trim the excess. You can even kind of sharpen that line and get it even closer. And then I'm ready to do the same thing. I'm going to take it, I'm going to pinch this right here. And by doing this method, then I'm ensuring that I am getting no raw edges on my finished applique. And so this is just one way of doing that. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to pull that fabric away, and I'm going to slice it just like this. Like I said, you don't have to print this out. You can just draw your own carrots. Carrots are kind of crookedy little vegetable anyway, so it doesn't even matter if they're not perfect, right? All right, do I have any questions? All right, who is watching the basketball tournament in the U.S., March Madness, the college basketball tournament? I haven't been keeping up, but apparently one of my teams is moving on in the tournament. We'll find out today. The University of Kentucky, my alma mater, is doing okay. I'm going to have to check on them later. All right, so now I'm going to push that out just like I did the other one. Just kind of roll it with this like this and your thumb. Ta-da! And I have my fat carrot that looks just like this. And like I said, this is a great use for your little bits of jelly rolls. You can even do poverty piecing. So if you have jelly roll pieces that are just like bits like this, you can just even piece them together and make yourself a Franken piece of fabric. It doesn't even have to be fancy. All right, so now I have my background, right? I said you can use muslin. I'm just using a piece of plain quilting cotton for my background. This is 13.5 inches tall, and let me raise this up so you can see. So this is 13.5 inches tall, and I'm going to center, I'm going to crease it like this, and I'm going to fold it again like this, because what I want is the center of that pillow, right? And you can take and give her a press, flip it over, and give her a press. I always like to find the center when I'm going to applique something down, because there's nothing more tragic than having your applique go every which way. So I found the crosshair, and I'm going to start by lining up one of my carrots. I'm going to fold it in half, just so that I know that's the center of the carrot, but it needs its top. So when I center this, I need to make sure that I'm accounting for that top. And so I'm going to leave this one about 1.5 inches, maybe. Let me measure that from the bottom so I can just line this up. This is oh, and look at that. That is exactly 1.5 inches. How about that? So it's 1.5 inches from the bottom. And then I have enough room up here for the little top of the carrot, and that should be within 1.5 inches. And so I'm going to go ahead and pin that into place because I like where it's at. And I'm going to leave it there. All right, so now for my next pieces, I can line up my carrots now going this way. And I'm just going to line up my carrots on either side, or I can put my carrots going the other way. If I want to, I could have my carrots going up and down. So I don't have to have my carrots all going the same direction. They could go different ways. And these two carrots, they look different sizes, but they're actually the same size, huh? Optical illusion. I'm going to fold these in half, do the same thing, line them up so that the bottoms of the carrots are relatively the same. And I have about 1.5 inches on this side. And so you're going to be able to make, for your piece, you're going to be able to fit, I'm going to have 3 large carrots and 2 small carrots on mine. And now I'm going to need my top. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press this carrot into place. I'm going to give it some heat. I'm going to move this out of the way. And by pressing it down, I'm activating a little bit of that glue, and I'm not going to do the top just from this point down, from that first rib down, because what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to add the little top of the carrot. So I'm just going to do this first seam all the way down. And I like that. And I'm going to go ahead and do this carrot here. And I'm just going to lay my ruler down here at the bottom. This is 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to use my ruler to kind of line it up and give myself space up here at the top. And same thing, I'm just going to line it up. And I'm going to hold the iron down in that spot. And what I'm doing is I'm spreading out my carrots. I'm leaving this top loose because I want to applique that other top. And then I'm going to do the same thing from here to here. If you notice, from the tip of this one to kind of the middle of this one, it's like 4.5 inches. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to go about 4.5 inches, line up this ruler, and I'm going to place that there. And I just want to do that so that my carrots are not floating everywhere. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to heat it. Now, whenever you're using interfacing that has glue, that holds it in place. But the other thing that you can do is just use a little bit of glue stick. If you have a glue stick like this, you can just stick these down with a little bit of a glue, just like this. You don't even have to be fancy. Just put glue right on there like that. Pin it in place, leave it to stick for a little while, and that'll hold them so that when you sew, they're not moving around. Now, I could go ahead and not sew these down and sew them down as I quilt the entire top, but I do like to anchor these before I do the machine quilting. So I'm going to put these in place, and I'm going to go ahead and work on my tops for these 3 carrots. Now, if I wanted to, I could put something over here like a little bunny, like a little peep, or I could do a quote that says spring if I wanted to do something across here and do some letters. But I'm going to go ahead and put 3 tops on my carrots. You're doing a square pillow, you're doing like a 14 by 14, you just need 3 big carrots, okay? All right, so let's look at the carrot tops themselves. Now, if you notice the picture, it had this thing right here, and I just drew some loops with my Sharpie just to kind of get an idea of what shape I was working with, because these are computerized images. And so I'm going to take 2 different colors of fabric. I can use a darker one and a lighter one, and I'm going to use these for my little carrot top. And what I'm going to use for mine is just regular fusible web Pellon 805 Wonder Under for my little tops. And so I'm going to get a little bit of this, and I'm going to iron it right on the back. So I'm just going to get pieces that are 2.5 inches. So I can just take, and with my ruler, a lot of times, instead of doing like a full 2.5 inches, I might do like 2 1/4. Let me get this out of the way. So instead of like a full 2.5, I might do just a little less than 2.5, and I will fuse that right on the back of my jelly rolls. So I can just mark it like this. You can score it just so you can see it. And now that I see the line, I'm just going to cut it with my scissors. Doesn't even have to be fancy. People think they need a million tools for quilting. You really don't. I like to show you that you can do this without having a million things. Here, and I'm even just going to keep going. All right, so I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to fold it in half. Half of it will go on the dark and half of it will go on the light. Like this. And I'm going to get my jelly roll strips. Just like this. And this is going to be my dark strip. Batiks are great for this, but if you don't have batiks, regular quilting cottons will work. And just get it so that it fits just inside there. You don't need to draw anything yet. And you're going to do one of these. I love to freestyle quilt. I know that probably stresses some people out because you want to trace everything and make it perfect, but I need you to open up your creative mind and just enjoy the process. It does not have to be perfect, and I don't want you to stress about it. Quilting should not be stressful. I know lots of quilters who really stress over their quilts, and you don't need to. This is a hobby, and you should enjoy it. It should be delightful. It should be happy. All right, so there's my stuff. And guess what I'm going to do? Now I'm just going to draw. So you're just going to take a pencil, your big chubby pencil or a skinny pencil, it doesn't matter. You're going to draw right on these, right? You want to know what those shapes look like. I kind of drew some shapes for you. So you're going to kind of draw. This is the darker one, and this is the lighter one. So for the darker one, I'm going to draw something that looks like a rooster comb right on the darker one. Here we go. I'm going to go like this. Look at this. And I'm going to come back down, and I'm going to do this. And they don't even have to be perfect. And then I'm going to do this right here. You can do 3 of them that are different. I'm going to do one that's slightly wider for the big one, and then one that's slightly smaller. And so I'm going to do these things that look like 3 weird fingers. They don't even have to be the same. And then for this one, I'm going to take one piece that looks like this, which I'm going to stick in the back, so I'm going to need 3 of those. And then I'm going to need something that looks like a heart. So just do this. And then you're done. Look at this. If you can draw these weird little hearts, then you're ready to go. I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut these out like this. And I'm just going to make my weird little carrot tops. And you don't even have to stick to the same image. They're going to look like that. Weird hearts. You don't even have to draw. You can even freestyle them. So I've got a couple of these weird little hearts. How many of you are scared of drawing? Go ahead and leave a comment. Some of you guys I think are scared of drawing, but it's not scary. Look at that. Weird little hearts, that's all you need. Weird little leaves, that's all you need. Look at this. A weird little leaf. They're not even perfect, and it's okay. How many of you guys have finished the other pillows? I finished most of them. I have not finished my March pillow because I am working on the quilt behind me. If you haven't noticed, last week we did a stepping stone project, and so I have that quilt behind me. That's what I've been working on. All right, so there's my weird little hearts. Look at that, right? And now I'm going to cut these little, I call these rooster combs. I don't know what these are called. Cactuses, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Don't be afraid. And then just go in here and make them however you want to make them, big or small. They're going to look fine. No one's going to be out there criticizing your artwork. And if they do, they're not your friends. Find new friends. Super easy. If your friends don't like your stuff, well, then that's too bad. All right. I'm going to make them bigger. I decided I want mine to be bigger, and that's okay. Because I want big, chunky carrot tops on mine. Mine are healthy carrots. And so, like I said, they don't even have to be perfect. They're just going to look like this, like weird little things just like that. Perfect. I'm going to save that for another carrot. And then I'm going to make a great big one for my big carrot like this. So I'm just going to make these little bushy things, just like that. All right. So that's my bigger one, and then I have 2 smaller ones, and then I have all this stuff over here. So I'm going to move my things out of the way, and I'm going to show you how to put these on your carrots. All right. So now that I have this sitting here, now we're going to start assembling all the little tops. All right. You have lots of time if you have spring break. So here's the big one. Look at that. Whoop. Ooh, that actually looks cute even without that. And these are the slightly smaller ones. For the smaller ones, I may not put the extra leaves. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Extra leaves or no extra leaves? And so the extra leaves are going to go like this on this one. And then this little tiny leaf can go back here. So you're just going to kind of make your own, whatever your heart desires. If you want to add like a little leaf on there, if you want to add a couple of these things, just one or two, you can go like that. You decide how you want to do this. I think I'm going to add this one up here to this one, kind of sticking out back there, make it look more bushy, and then maybe there. I like how that looks on the big one. So you're just going to kind of stick that out there and make your leaves do whatever they want to do. You just play with them. I think I like it like this, kind of chubby. Might even stick another one in here, just like this. Yep, I like that. Like I said, these little ones, they might just have only the dark leaves. Or you can do these together and do a light colored, bushy little thing like this. But you decide however you want to play with these. You can do individual carrot stems. It doesn't matter. Oh, I like how that looks. Which means I'm going to now modify my own design, and I'm just going to chop this because I haven't even installed it yet. And so now I'm going to go like this. And so you're just going to play with this and be creative as you want. How about that? I like that one. And I'm going to do the same thing to this one. And then those other leaves will be leftover bits for my other carrots. So now this one is going to go on this side. And I'm going to put this weird little heart on the right. Like that. I like how those look. Like I said, I have all these leaves. I could make this one bushier up here. And I'm just going to layer it if I wanted to. Just like that. So that this big carrot is bigger. And I like how that looks. So you play around with this and you decide how you want it. Once you have it, you're just going to do the same thing that you always do on these. You're going to take a big needle and you're going to remove the backing and put those in place. What do you guys think? You like the new leaves chopped up? You like the big fat leaves? Like I said, and you can play with this. You're just using scraps anyway. Don't waste your good fabric. You can just, all that weird little fabric sitting in your scrap bin for this kind of stuff. I'm going to be a lot more stingy with my fabric now that so many quilt shops are closing and it's getting harder to find fabric that I like. So I'm going to be stingy with mine. All right, so this one, I think I'm going to make it like this. I'm going to kind of join it together. I like how that looks. So I'm just going to take it. I'm going to fuse it into place. And then I'm going to fuse the top of the carrot, just like this. And I like how that looks. What do you guys think? Robin, I know you think you can't draw, but I think you can. Look, we're just cutting weird little oblongs. Look at this. This is not just like a little shape like that. About a 2-inch little leaf. And now we're going to take this thing right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. We're just going to remove all the backs and put that in there. We've tested it out how we want that to look. I'm just going to use this. Look at these needles. They're gigantic. Use these giant needles and pull this off. And I think I'm liking how this looks. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys like how this looks? I hope that this little project is bringing you some joy. This pillow, I think I'm going to quilt it in a grid to make my life easier. So I'm just going to stick that over here. And I might even get another big one like this. Let me see. Middle. What do you guys think? Do you guys like it layered or when the leaves just kind of stick out? Like that. This is why batiks are fun, because they have so many different colors. Even though it's the same jelly roll strip, it looks like a bunch of different pieces of fabric. Yep, I like how that looks. Let me move all these extras out of the way. I think I'm going to leave it like that. Maybe put this one in the front and this one off here to the side. Yep, I think this is going to stay. Now that I have it where I like it, just going to press it down. Sometimes I play with this longer than I should, but I like how that looks. It made it nice and bushy. And so these are kind of skinny over here, and then I'm doing this one over here. I love carrots. This is looking good. And carrots are one of my favorite vegetables. You can make them savory, you can make them salty, you can make them sweet. They're that delicious, super fun veggie. All right, I'm almost done, and then I will be ready to make 2 more carrots, but I'm not going to make you watch that because I think you have seen enough to know what you need to do. My little carrot goes like this. I'm going to press that down with just enough heat so that it sticks, and then I'm going to sew these with my sewing machine, just a straight stitch all the way around. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to cut the excess fabric off the end of this. And you can sew this with just a regular sewing machine. You don't have to have a fancy embroidery machine with special stitches, nothing like that. This piece of fabric was just folded in half, and I'm just cutting it off. And I have this, which I'm going to use for the back. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to take and I'm going to straight stitch all the way around with my machine, and I'll show you how I do that, and then I'm going to be done with this. What do you think? I think I really like how these are looking. It doesn't matter whether you use quilting cotton, whether you use batiks, whether you piece this together. You decide how you want to do it, and then when you're done, you're just going to come over to your machine. I have a light gray. You don't even have to use a matching color if you don't want to. And then I'm just going to sew literally right along that edge of that carrot. And then what that'll do is that will make sure that I don't have any raw edges on this. And then I am sewing as close to the edge as possible. I would say that's not even a 1/16 of an inch. It's super, super close to that edge. Just like that. I'm lifting that up to pivot. The back of this fabric, this backing fabric has been starched lightly, and that keeps it from puckering. So I'm just going to go like this. If you have a walking foot, that works, but if not, you're just sewing right along that edge. And you're going to just carefully come right where that is. And if you want to stop, you can sew right over here off the carrot onto that, or you can come back and sew that later. I'm going to come back and sew that later because I might do a decorative stitch. I haven't decided yet. I might even hand embellish that. And then I'm just going to come right around the corner, and I'm going to slow down and stop where I started and pull that away. And then that is how I anchor these. And let me pull it over here so you can see it. That is what that looks like. It has that thread. I'm just going to cut that off. And that is how I anchor these, friends. Nothing fancy. No crazy sewing machines. I've just stitched right along that edge. That gray, you can barely even see it, and I love how that looks. And okay, friends, your kindergarten self needs to get out there and draw and make some beautiful things. And then this will become a little lumbar pillow for my couch. I'm going to add 2 more carrots. I'm going to draw a grid lightly on here, and then I will use my walking foot to quilt diagonal lines going both ways, and I will post that. And for those of you who wanted to see what I'm doing with my stepping stones, that's my stepping stones quilt block in the alternate setting, and I'm almost done with those blocks. All right, friends, this is how we make the happy carrot block. Super fun. Like I said, 3 carrots if you want to make a square. If you want to make it bigger than that, you can add more carrots. Mine is going to have 5 because it's a lumbar. And all you need is 4 jelly roll strips of different pieces of orange and 2 jelly roll strips of green, 1 light, 1 dark, and then that's it. Your background, and then you can just play, and make that happy little carrot block. And I think you're going to like it. All right, friends, I will see you guys at 6 o'clock. Those of you who are continuing with me with the Fruits of the Spirit. So I'm going to be taking all this stuff down and reloading all my new stuff. But I will see you guys in about an hour and a half. If you're watching the basketball tournament, enjoy. And I will see you guys later. Bye-bye, friends. Thank you. Give it a thumbs up if you like this. Thanks a million.